What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected and beloved actors sits down for what should have been a calm, friendly interview, only to be met with a level of disrespect that would send shockwaves across the entire entertainment industry? This wasn't just an awkward moment. This wasn't a heated debate. This was explosive. It only took 22 seconds for the tone of the interview to shift, from light-hearted conversation to a confrontation so intense that producers were forced to cut to commercial and remove Samuel L. Jackson from the set of The View, yes, kicked off. On live television, it all started with one comment, one question, and one line from Joy Behar that crossed the line from curiosity into condescension. Before we break down exactly what happened in that studio, make sure you tap that subscribe button and tell me in the comments how you would have reacted. Because once you hear what was said, you're going to have an opinion. Samuel L. Jackson walked into that studio expecting a standard promotional interview. Nothing political. Nothing controversial. Just a seasoned professional discussing his craft. But Joy Behar had something else in mind. Behind that trademark smirk and rehearsed talk show warmth, she was about to ask a question that didn't just insult Jackson's career, it challenged his identity, and Samuel L. Jackson wasn't going to let that slide. Not today. Not ever. Samuel L. Jackson stepped onto the set of The View that morning with the ease and confidence of someone who has done this 1,000 times. The studio lights were warm, the audience was excited, and the atmosphere felt almost casual. He greeted the hosts with that signature blend of charm and subtle humor that has made him one of Hollywood's most respected figures. Everything about the moment suggested this would be just another polished daytime interview. He was there for one reason: to promote his new film. No controversy, no drama, no political fireworks, just conversation. The other hosts welcomed him politely, smiling, laughing, asking thoughtful questions about his career, his process, his journey. Jackson responded with grace, sharing stories from set, dropping witty one-liners that made the audience chuckle, showing the seasoned professionalism of a man who has spent decades in front of cameras. It was smooth, it was respectful, it was comfortable. But at the far end of the table, Joy Behar sat quietly, waiting, watching. Her posture relaxed, her expression thoughtful, yet there was something in her eyes that suggested she wasn't interested in just another pleasant celebrity interview. She had a point to make, or at least she thought she did. The audience didn't know it yet, Samuel didn't know it yet, but the tone of the room was about to change, because this wasn't going to be a friendly conversation. This was the calm before the storm. And then, almost like a switch flipping, Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair. Her smile didn't fade, but something in her tone changed. It was subtle at first, the kind of shift that only happens when someone's pretending to just ask a question, while fully intending to start a fire. "Samuel," she began, her voice coated in that familiar blend of curiosity and condescension. "You've played a lot of intense characters over the years. The tough guy, the angry man, the one who's always ready to explode." The air in the room tightened. The other hosts shifted. Slightly, the audience's laughter faded into silence. Jackson's expression stayed neutral, but his eyes sharpened. Joy continued, almost as if she didn't notice the tension, or worse, like she enjoyed it. "Don't you ever worry," she said, tilting her head, "that you're reinforcing negative stereotypes, that young people watching you might think that's the only kind of person you represent." There it was. Not a question, a judgment disguised as one, a soft-spoken accusation delivered with a smile. Samuel didn't react. Immediately. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't roll his eyes. He simply took a breath, long, slow, controlled, because he understood exactly what was being implied. This wasn't about film roles. This wasn't about character types. This was about identity, about respect, about the idea that his contributions to cinema could be reduced to a stereotype by someone who had never walked a mile in his shoes. And in that moment, the storm began to build. Samuel L. Jackson didn't snap. He didn't roll his eyes. He didn't raise his voice or break into anger. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He paused. A long, deliberate pause that made the entire studio go still. The kind of silence that demands attention. The kind that tells you something is about to shift. He leaned back slightly in his chair, hands folded, posture relaxed but unmistakably focused. When he spoke, his voice was steady, measured, even gentle, but layered with meaning. "Joy," he said, meeting her eyes directly. "I've played a lot of characters over the years. Some loud, some quiet, some heroic, some complicated. I choose roles that tell stories worth telling." There was no hostility in his tone, no sarcasm, just truth. The audience listened. The co-hosts froze, watching. "My job isn't to play characters that make everyone comfortable," he continued. "My job is to reflect life. And life doesn't fit into neat, polite, easy little boxes." Joy opened her mouth to respond, perhaps to defend, perhaps to push again. But Samuel wasn't finished. "And let's be clear," he added, still calm, still composed. "I don't pick roles based on what you or anyone else think is acceptable. I pick them because they mean something, because they say something, because they matter." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His composure spoke louder than anger ever could. And that, right there, was the moment the tone shifted, for everyone watching. But Joy Behar, she's not finished. Because controversy isn't just her job, it's her sport, and right now, she sees an opportunity, the kind she lives for. She leans forward in her chair, voice light, almost playful, but there's a blade hidden beneath the tone. "Well, Samuel, some people say your anger isn't performance. Maybe it's who you really are." The room tightens. It's subtle, the kind of shift only live television cameras catch. A breath held, a spine straightened, eyes flickering toward the host who just crossed a line. The audience laughs, unsure if they're supposed to, but Samuel L. Jackson doesn't move. He just watches her. Silent, the kind of silence that swallows sound. Joy tries again. This time with that smirk she knows the audience recognizes. I mean, come on, the yelling, the intensity, the swearing. Is that just acting, or is that the real you? There it is. The provocation, the push, the implication that Samuel L. Jackson, one of Hollywood's most iconic performers, isn't acting. He's simply an angry black man playing himself, and everybody knows it. The other hosts shift in their seats. The audience gets quieter. Producers off-camera freeze, headsets half raised. They know exactly what she just implied. They know exactly what comes next. Because there are moments on live television when the script burns away, and the truth, the real truth, steps into the spotlight. And this is one of those moments. And then, it happens. The line snaps. Samuel L. Jackson doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't shout. He doesn't lean forward or posture or make a scene. He just looks at her, a stare with weight, a stare that says, "I heard you, and I'm not letting that slide." The studio goes still. "You think I'm angry because I play characters with intensity." His tone is steady, measured, dangerously calm. "I'm an actor. I bring truth to roles. That's the job." Joy laughs, because that's her defense mechanism. The laugh that says, "Relax. It's just a joke." But this time, nobody laughs with her. "Come on, Sam. Don't be so serious." He cuts her off. Not loudly, not aggressively, just precision. "No, you asked. I'm answering. You don't get to decide. Who I am, you don't get to label me because it makes for good TV." The other hosts freeze, eyes wide, hands still. Joy tries to Pivot tries to save the segment. We're just having a conversation, but the control is gone. The room has shifted. Samuel's voice drops lower, the kind of tone that hits deeper than shouting ever could. There's a difference between conversation and provocation, and you know exactly which one you came here to do. Silence. Not TV. Silence. Real silence. The kind that makes the audience forget to breathe. This was the moment. Everything truly snapped. You could see it in Joy's posture. Her shoulders tightened, her voice sharpened. She wasn't just hosting anymore. She was challenging. And Samuel, he wasn't playing along. Joy leaned in, eyes narrowed just enough to signal that this was no longer friendly daylight television. You know, Samuel, maybe the issue isn't Hollywood. Maybe the issue is you. That one sentence. That was the match to the gasoline. The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, murmurs, a shift of unease like everyone collectively felt something had gone too far. Samuel's expression didn't change at first, but the silence he held was louder than anything he could have said. He wasn't silent because he didn't have words. He was silent because he was choosing them. Slowly, carefully, dangerous. He leaned forward just slightly, not aggressive, just deliberate. What did you just say? Joy tried to keep her smile, but now the smile looked forced. Thin, shaky, strained under the weight of the moment she'd created. I'm saying maybe the way you carry yourself makes it hard for people to work with you. There it was. Not a question, not commentary, but a personal attack. And it was live. Samuel's jaw set. His tone dropped into that unmistakable, unshakable Samuel L. Jackson calm, the kind that means the storm has landed. If you're going to say something like that, say it like you mean it. No one moved. The breaking point was not loud. It was dead quiet. You could feel it. The air wasn't just tense anymore. It was charged like the seconds before. Lightning splits the sky. Joy thought she had control. She thought she could push just a little further. One more jab, one more dig. One more attempt to prove she could break him. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and delivered the line that crossed the point of no return. Maybe you're just not the man people think you are. That was it. Not critique, not commentary. Character. Assassination. The audience froze. Other hosts stopped breathing. Even the cameras, it seemed, hesitated. Samuel didn't explode. He didn't yell. He didn't posture. Instead, he took off his glasses and placed them gently on the table. Methodical, controlled. The kind of calm that's far more dangerous than anger. He looked Joy directly in the eye. You don't know a damn thing about the man I am, but you sure are comfortable pretending you do. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Samuel wasn't finished. You invited me here to talk about my work, not to let you dress me down for sport. I don't play those games. A beat of silence. Then he stood. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just final. The producers panicked, the audience whispered. Joy tried to regain control, her voice cracking. Sit down. We're not finished. Samuel paused, just long enough to make sure the message landed. I am. And he walked off the stage. That was the final straw. The studio didn't just fall silent, it collapsed into silence. The kind of silence that feels like a void, like sound itself has stopped existing. Samuel didn't look back. Not once. Not at the hosts. Not at the cameras. Not at the audience. He simply turned and began walking toward the edge of the stage, each step measured and steady, not angry, resolved. The camera tried to follow him, instinctively drawn to the gravity of the moment. One of the producers waved frantically to cut, to switch to wide angle, to do something. But everyone knew the truth. This was the moment. The moment that would replay across social media, news cycles, talk segments, and culture discussions for years. Joy Behar reached out a hand as if she could pull him back with nothing more than her voice. Samuel. Wait, come on, we can talk about this. But her words had no weight now. No authority. No power. Samuel didn't stop. Walking. Didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. He paused only. Once, at the very edge of the stage, and turned half back. Toward the audience. His voice was calm, composed, unmistakable. Respect is a two-way street, and I'm not going to stand in a place where it only goes one. Direction, no anger, no theatrics, just truth. Then he stepped through the curtains and disappeared. From view, the stage was still. The audience. Stunned, Joy Behar left staring at an empty chair and the consequences of her own words. When the show finally cut to commercial, the studio felt like it was holding its breath. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the air itself had thickened. Heavy, uncomfortable, undeniable. Joy Behar sat frozen in her chair, staring at the place where Samuel had just been sitting. Her expression wasn't anger anymore. It was realization, the realization that she had lost control of the moment and of the narrative. Producers rushed onto the stage, speaking in hushed tones, damage control mode. Cameras were repositioned, segments were rearranged. Everyone knew this wasn't just a moment. This was an event. And outside that studio, the explosion had already begun. Clips hit social media within minutes. The walkout, the confrontation, the final words. They spread across platforms like wildfire. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, each platform adding its own storm of commentary. Some called Samuel a hero, some called Joy reckless, others called it a cultural reset. But one thing was clear. The audience didn't just watch that moment. They felt it. For weeks. Talk shows, late-night hosts, commentators, podcasters. Everyone dissected what happened. Was it about respect? Was it about power? Was it about ego? Or was it simply the moment someone finally said, "Enough"? The View issued a statement, PR language, carefully worded, predictable. But Samuel? He didn't need a statement. His actions had already spoken louder than any press release ever could.